What the Fronx, Maruti? What the Fronx? Well, that was my first reaction when I heard the name Fronx at the Auto Expo, and since then, I'm not able to wrap my head around this name. I mean, I understand that Maruti has a thing for quirky names. We have the Alto, we have the Espresso, we have the Celerio, and we, of course, also have the Cappuccino in a few markets. But Fronx, do tell us what you think in the comment section below. And Maruti, did you really not think about the northern belt while naming your car? Keeping the jokes aside, meet the all-new Maruti Suzuki Fronx. It is the premium subcompact SUV from the Nexa range and will be positioned between the Baleno and the Grand Vitara. But my main question to Maruti is, did it really require a car in this segment where it already has a car like the Brezza? Well, stick with us because by the end of this video, we hope to find an answer to this.
Apart from the name, I'm also not convinced with the whole SUV terminology that Maruti is using for the Fronx. For me, it is a subcompact crossover, a Baleno on stilts. But giving credit where it's due, Maruti has done a splendid job in that department. From the front, it resembles a lot like the Grand Vitara. Lots of muscle, lots of cuts and creases along the bumper to help with that aggressive look. And unlike the GV, there's less use of chrome this time. We've seen a similar setup of the headlamps on a rival car, but it goes well with the overall styling. Maruti has utilized a substantial amount of black cladding all around to not only enhance its SUV character, but also differentiate it with the Baleno. The large wheel arches on the side and the overall design of the alloys look quite attractive. I particularly like the detailing at the back with the one-piece light bar joining the tail lamps. This, however, is not available on the base versions. Tell us what you think of the design in the comment section below. Inside, I would have loved if Maruti showed some originality. Instead, they used the same components from the Baleno, Brezza and even the Grand Vitara. The steering wheel, the instrument panel and even the center console are all sourced from the Baleno. Considering close to 1000 crore rupees was spent into developing this car, some creativity would have been appreciated. Despite this, I quite like the look and feel of this cabin. However, many features such as the heads-up display, 360 view cameras, Arcmus surround sound, wireless charging, Suzuki Connect and rear wiper and washer are retained from the Baleno and offered only with the top versions. Wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay is present in all except the base version of the 1.2-litre unit, and some additional things like ventilated seats could have made a difference for buyers. Let's talk some numbers now. In terms of dimensions, the Fronx sits on the same wheelbase as the Baleno, but is longer, wider and taller, but not by much. It also sits higher with a better ground clearance. Compare it with the Brezza's proportions and the Fronx comes out with a superior wheelbase, but that too marginally.
Now, it's really important to talk about the rear seat spacing of the Fronx because this is in fact a subcompact SUV, but the dimensions are very similar to what we have with the Baleno and not exactly close to the Brezza. So because of that, what happens is you don't have enough headroom, but you get more than decent knee room at the back, which will be very beneficial for the passengers traveling for a longer journey.
Surprisingly, only the Zeta and the Alpha trims of the turbo versions receive rear AC and fast charging sockets. Maruti cars have always been tuned for both comfort and fuel efficiency, but the one time it brought an engine worth talking about, it was quickly taken off the shelf due to poor sales. But Maruti has again taken a very bold step and reintroduces its 1-litre booster jet engine. And this time, there's also an automatic to go along with the manual transmission. And without a second thought, I quickly hopped into the manual version first.
I really love the three-pot system on this because the turbo engine feels so alive when it reaches that 2000 to 4000 RPM range. It is obviously not as quick or doesn't show that urgency on the lower ends because of that smart hybrid system that doesn't let you compromise on fuel efficiency. So the power delivery is quite linear. But what I really love about this car is this manual gearbox. The shifts are so smooth, they're quite effortless, and that gearbox has been married really well with that engine.
Oh, yes, the manual unit is extremely fun to drive, and I could gladly spend an entire day driving to the narrow lanes of Goa in this. Even at the specially curated autocross track, I had most fun with the manual Fronx. This time also gave me a bit of perspective.
Now, talking about the suspension of the car, of course it is based on the Baleno, but the engineers at Maruti have tweaked it slightly. So this one is slightly on the firmer side, but that adds to the driving experience because you glide over bumps quite smoothly, and even at NVH levels is so nice and at the lower end basically, so you really don't get to hear a lot of outside noise sweeping inside the cabin that adds to that pleasurable drive.
Next up is the same tried and tested automatic unit from the Brezza. And if you've driven that car, then you would surely know that there's not much to expect. And so it was clear where my allegiances lied.
Now that I've driven both the versions of the Fronx, I can say with some conviction that I really like the manual version of the car, simply because it's more engaging, because with this turbo engine, it's a lot of fun to drive, and that manual transmission really helps get the maximum potential out of this car. Now, of course, the AMT gives you the best of both worlds. If you want to drive with leisurely, then you obviously can do it in the automatic version. And then you also have the manual version with the provision to use the paddle shifters that also gives you more control. But then again, that feel of that manual transmission, with this turbojet engine, it's just so fun to drive.
Slow and confused shifts makes this version less likable. Maruti could have paid a bit more attention in tuning it better because that engine has a lot of potential. Having said that, Maruti could have easily done away with the hybrid unit on this powertrain, making the engine even more peppier.
Now, steering feedback isn't that bad. I would have personally preferred a slightly firmer, slightly heavier steering wheel, but that's just me because I like my sporty cars to have a firmer steering wheel.
The lightweight nature of the steering does help in managing tight spaces in the city. Maruti is aggressively going after a larger chunk of sales in the subcompact SUV space, while the Brezza is doing brilliant in keeping the likes of the Hyundai Venue and Kia Sonet at bay. With the Fronx, the company will add a sense of premiumness to this segment. Looking at the larger picture though, there are chances that the Fronx could hurt the sales of the Brezza as well. Even more so because this time around, the turbo petrol will be locally produced. However, we would have loved to drive the 1.2 litre naturally aspirated unit since that will be the most preferred choice for the buyers. And of course, it will be more affordable than the turbos, unless Maruti pulls a rabbit out of its hat and prices quite aggressively. Given that the Venue and the Sonet Turbo are priced approximately between 10,43,000 rupees to 13,89,000 rupees, we feel that the right price for this Turbo Fronx could be anywhere between 10 lakh to 13 lakh rupees to keep things very, very interesting. So apart from hearing people mispronounce the name Fronx, I am quite excited to see what the future of this car holds.